Hey everyone, welcome back to episode 135 of the Guardian Project podcast. I'm your host, Andy, this show's fairy guide mother.
Ah, that's nice.
That's nice.
Guide us into some good knowledge. And I'm your other host, Mike. And Commander really hasn't been the same since Crimson Vow got released. It's really turned into a Toxrill environment.
Please listen carefully.
And this is the podcast where we talk about all things Magic the Gathering.
But mostly Commander.
So this week we got to find out about the Secret Lair Astrology lands that is coming out in 2022, I guess this year. Some of them are already up. So this Secret Lair is showcasing star signs this year. The announcement says that they will make a new astrological drop available to pre-order every month at secretlair.wizards.com. Each drop celebrates a specific astrological sign, and they'll release them according to their corresponding calendar month. Once each drop shows up on the site, it's going to stick around for the rest of the year. They're going to be available for pre-order and then available to purchase at a later date while the supplies last. And it does say if any of them sell out before December 23rd, they're going to reprint them. So they're just going to restock them, and you'll be able to sign up, be notified when more are available. Starting out with Capricorn, do you follow astrology signs? I have never really followed them.
I do not follow astrology signs, but I do like astronomy. I do like astronomy.
Astronomy's cool.
Yeah.
Astrology, I don't know much about, but the drop includes, at least for Capricorn, this includes swamps. So you can get 5 of them in non-foil for $30 or 5 of them in foil for $40. Or you can get 25 of them in non-foil for $120, or 25 of them in foil for $160. If you want these, the art's really cool.
It's
I just
very
don't
nice.
know. I just don't know if I need any more basics through Secret Lair after buying the full text basics.
Yeah, and you know, they cost a lot of money. And when we look at deck building, it's like we always count basic lands as zero cents or whatever, but they are really pretty.
They are really pretty. So what is your astrological sign? You're a Gemini, right?
I am a Gemini.
Okay, so I'm a Scorpio, and we've already said that we don't follow this.
Right.
But I did a little research to
Okay.
see how compatible you and I are. So it says, overall, Gemini and Scorpio are considered to be incompatible zodiac matches. Although it's a fun and sexy match, a lot of work needs to be done for them to have a harmonious relationship.
Oh my goodness. Well, you know what? We do a lot of work to make this relationship. Well, no, we do a lot of work for the podcast.
This podcast is fun and sexy. So
There you go.
if you're here, it's a good time. So and if you want to tweet at us, if you are a compatible match with either a Gemini or a Scorpio, just tweet at us with hashtag astrology is cool.
Astrology is cool.
Yeah.
Can't wait to see what those other basics look like. By the way, if you haven't heard, our merch store is actually live. So if you head on over to the guardianprojectpodcast.com, you can pick up a playmat for $30. It's free shipping. Either the blue or the black/gray playmat, whichever you like, or maybe both. That would be fantastic.
I call it gray. It definitely looks more black though on the website. It's a really good. It's like slate. Maybe we call it slate.
Oh, that's a good name for it.
Like when car companies call something silver just slate or gunmetal. It's like that's silver.
I'm gonna be honest. I just learned yesterday that the original Pokemon you start in Pallet Town and every other city is a color on a color palette. Just learned that yesterday.
Oh my! I did not know that.
Yeah.
Mind blown.
Right?
I've
Anyway.
been playing that game since 1997.
Well, we didn't know our colors back then. We only knew our Pokemon. Everything was in black and white
This
on the
is
old
true.
Game Boy.
True.
So we also want to say thank you to a brand new patron, Robert Doobie. If you don't know, Bob was actually the person who had the play of the game for me in the year of 2021 with his Vrondis deck comboing off.
Nice.
So Bob, thank you very much for being a patron.
We appreciate it. Thank you so much. And everybody, if you want to support us, you can head to patreon.com/guardianprojectpod, donate for any dollar amount. We appreciate all of you supporting us. You are helping our show continue and for us to be able to get some cool swag to give back to the community.
And if you're looking for another way to support the podcast, whatever platform you are enjoying the podcast on now, if you could subscribe, rate, review, and leave comments, we would be most appreciative.
And you can also find us online at theguardianprojectpodcast.com. Our stream starts this week. We're going to be streaming at twitch.tv/guardianprojectpodcast. You can find our social media on Twitter at GuardianPod. It's on Instagram at Guardian Project Podcast. And then we put our videos on YouTube, youtube.com/theguardianproject. And you can email us at guardianprojectpod@gmail.com. We love to hear from you. Coyle, what is on the agenda this week?
So it's been a while since we talked about this. We had an episode back in the 80s, I think it was, where we talked about FOMO, fear of missing
1987.
Back in the 80s. So we're gonna circle back around this because, you know, it's been what? Almost
a full year since we've talked about FOMO.
Yeah, so
the fear of missing out.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it again since this last episode on some of the things that people may have bought into a little bit too early.
So don't rush, don't worry. We will be right back after the transition music plays. So we're talking about FOMO, and I certainly feel this more and more, I think, as time goes on, wanting to buy new cards right away for a new commander, and there's like an obvious card that feels like it belongs in the deck, and you just have to have it. And you know, if you get in soon enough, you might not run into the artificial price spikes, which is specifically what we're talking about. But sometimes if you wait to pull the trigger for like 3 days, it's really rough.
Oh yeah.
So we're going to talk about some cards that spiked in price based on new commanders that came out, specifically legendary creatures for the most part. Now that commander is kind of really, really impacting the price of cards.
Oh yeah.
And at the end, we're going to talk about how much you would have spent if you bought into the FOMO, into that price hype, versus what you would have spent if you just waited a little while. Maybe, a couple of months, even sometimes a couple of days. That's right. Feels like.
That's right.
The first card on our list is a Beacon of Creation. So Beacon of Creation is a sorcery for 3 and a green. It says, put a 1/1 green insect creature into play for each forest you control. Shuffle Beacon of Creation into its owner's library. So this card was about a $3 card for a long time, until Strixhaven hit. And actually, a lot of cards that we're going to talk about today are related to Strixhaven.
Oh, yeah.
Because there were just a lot of really cool legendary creatures that came out. Strixhaven and Strixhaven Commander. So this card spiked to nearly $27 after Black's Vexing Pest came out, which is a legendary pest creature for 2 and a green. It's a 3/2 that says other pests, bats, insects, snakes, and spiders you control get +1/+1. And when Black's Vexing Pest dies, you gain 4 life. We also had a commander deck released with Ruxa, Patient Professor, a Bear Druid 4/4 for 2 green that says when it enters the battlefield or attacks, return target creature card with no abilities from your graveyard to your hand. And then creatures with no abilities get +1/+1. So Beacon of Creation is just making some 1/1 green insects with no abilities. So they're getting +1/+1. And then, Adrix and Nev and Essex also came out, which are really decks that are caring about tokens. So it's kind of not surprising that Beacon of Creation saw this massive spike.
Yeah, I've never seen Beacon of Creation actually played other than in my deck, because I actually play this in my Illuna Polymorph deck because it's just another card that creates tokens, and since it gets shuffled back in the library, you can keep using it over and over again. But Modern Horizons 2 actually had a land get printed this year called Yavimaya Cradle of Growth, which states each land is a forest in addition to its other land types, which combos pretty well with Beacon of Creation. We didn't see an artificial spike when Yavimaya came out, but I'm wondering if people who are playing these Blex decks and these Ruxa decks actually have upgraded and put this Yavimaya in there. Something to consider, something I haven't done for my Aluna deck yet, and I need to.
Yeah, I haven't put Yavimaya in a ton. I do think that I only opened maybe 2.
Okay.
I didn't open a ton of Modern Horizons 2 because
Right.
I kept a lot of those draft boosters sealed so that one day when we're out of this gosh darn pandemic, we can draft again.
One day.
One day. So first card, Beacon of Creation. It's also right now at the time of recording sitting between $12 and $14. So if you got it beforehand, it was around $3, which is I assume what you probably got it for when you built a Luna a year prior to Strixhaven coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And then some people probably bought it at 27. It's also only been printed one time, so I'm not surprised that it is that expensive. But yeah, single printing card, Beacon of Creation.
Absolutely. So there was a really big combo piece card that was printed in the Onslaught block that again is going to see a spike because of Strixhaven printings, specifically because of the Magecraft ability in Strixhaven. Magecraft is a static ability that triggers whenever you cast or copy a spell, and there is actually a color wheel, I can't think of the word, a five card set of each color of chains that actually have the ability to constantly repeat themselves. Chain of Smog is the particular card that we saw a big spike in. It was an 18-cent card before
18
Strixhaven.
cents.
And it went up to $27. And I don't know if you remember the hype around this card when Professor Onyx came out and Witherbloom Apprentice are specifically the 2 cards it combos with. Professor Onyx is a 6 mana Planeswalker, 4 black, 5 loyalty. The important part of Magecraft, whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. And Witherbloom Apprentice for black and a green, you get a 2/2 human druid. With Magecraft, whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Now, Chain of Smog is a 2-mana sorcery that says target player discards 2 cards from his or her hand. That player may copy the spell and may choose a new target for that copy. So what you do with the combo here is you actually target yourself with Chain of Smog and you discard 2 cards and then you repeat it and you discard. It doesn't matter if you have 0 cards in your hand. You just repeat it infinitely or however many times it takes to kill your opponents. So it would have cost you $27 to get this. It is used in like CEDH. It's used in, higher power because it is kind of a combo out of nowhere piece. But you can get it now for about $7. So
yeah, I'm running this in my Dina Soul Steeper deck only because I was already running the Magecraft creatures. And, as a combo player, I had to try it out. I have not yet gotten, I don't believe, to Chain of Smog.
Okay.
I've gotten it in my hand, but I didn't either have Professor Onyx or the Witherbloom Apprentice. 18 cents to $27.
That's crazy. I do like the fact that it does combo with 2 cards and not just 1 card. And I think that might actually have a lot to do with the huge spike. And even 18 cents to $7, I mean, that's a pretty big increase in price. It is now a relevant card where it may have not been considered a relevant card before.
Yeah. So the next card is Fable of Wolf and Owl. So this card is from Eventide, and it's an enchantment for 3 and then hybrid green, blue, green, blue, green, blue. So 6 mana total. And it says whenever you play a green spell, you may put a 2/2 green wolf creature token into play. And whenever you play a blue spell, you may put a 1/1 blue bird creature token with flying into play. And the card was about $3 for a long time until the Strixhaven Commander deck came out with Adrix and Nev Twin Casters. So Adrix and Nev Twin Casters, they are a 2/2 Merfolk Wizard for 2 green and a blue with Ward 2. And it says if 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many are created instead. So you've got kind of a parallel lives going on here. You're making double tokens. And Fable of Wolf and Owl, that was around $3 with a single printing in Eventide, shot right up to $22. So you had a very, very expensive card that cost 6 mana and required other things to happen.
Yeah.
Like this, it requires setup, right? It's not play Fable of Wolf and Owl and win the game like a Chain of Smog with like one new card.
Right.
Obviously 2-card combos kind of go crazy pretty quickly. This requires setup. It's just kind of more value over time. And if you were to purchase it now at the time of recording, it's around $5.
Yeah, I think that's a good price for a 6 mana enchantment like that. It's it takes a whole lot of setup. And I went back into the price history of this because I was curious, because I know this particular card also goes really well with the Commander Azuri Claw of Progress. From the Invent Hostility,
Yeah,
deck.
Commander 15. So
Yeah.
Azuri Claw of Progress is a 3/3 elf warrior for 2 green and a blue. And it says whenever a creature power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you get an experience counter. Fortunately, the wolf and the bird that you make are both under 2 power, so you can get a lot of experience counters.
Right.
And then Azuri, at the beginning of combat, you put X counters on your creatures, where X is your experience counter. So it's
good.
It's very good in that deck.
And that's the only reason I knew about this particular card is because of this deck. And Nick had this in his Azuri deck, which is very cool.
Yes. Very good card, and if you waited, it's probably not that expensive Well, it's expensive is relative, but $5 is better than 22.
Yes. So now let's talk about a really cool artifact sorcery real quick called Scrap Mastery.
Yes.
It is a 5 mana sorcery, 3 red that says each player exiles all artifact cards from their graveyard, then sacrifices all artifacts they control, then puts all cards they exiled this way onto the battlefield. This was printed in the Derevi Scrap Savant Precon, and it was also
Commander 14.
And it was printed a second time in the Derevi Scrap Savant Precon, printed in Commander Anthology Volume 2. So
I also think, I was also, I believe, printed in 2016. Right?
Oh.
No, it wasn't. No.
Okay.
Derevi was in 2016.
Yes. So yeah, those are the only 2 printings, and we saw another increase in price here with a Strixhaven Commander, specifically the Strixhaven Commander sets, the Lore Hold Commander, Osgir the Reconstructor. So Scrap Mastery was $3. And it jumped up to $13 when Osgir the Reconstructor was printed. So Osgir is a 4 mana, 2 red and a white giant artificer 4/4 with vigilance, and it has pay 1, sacrifice an artifact. Target creature you control gets +2/+0 until end of turn, or you can pay X and tap to exile an artifact card with mana value X from your graveyard. Create 2 tokens that are copies of the exiled card. Activate only as a sorcery. So obviously Scrap Mastery, because you want to throw all of your artifacts into your graveyard with an Osgir deck and then Scrap Mastery them all back, it went up in price, and it only had the two printings in pre-constructed decks. So definitely not as available as a draft booster or a set booster or anything like that. So it went up to $13, but as long as you waited, you can now get it for only $2. $2 whole dollars. So yeah, I mean, honestly, $2 for a card that's only been printed twice and in the limited that it is, and for what it does, and it only costs 5 mana, and it is sometimes just like a win on the spot card. I'm surprised this card actually isn't more expensive, but I am also happy that I didn't pick it up for $13.
You could get 6 of them now for the price you paid if you bought into the hype.
That's right. Now, when Osgir came out, there was at least one other card that also saw a little spike in price, and that was Mox Tantalite from the original Modern Horizons set. It was going for about $17 to $19 when Osgir came out, and the reason is, so Mox Tantalite doesn't actually have a casting cost, and instead has a thing called Suspend 3, so you can pay 0 and put 3 time counters on it, and then every upkeep you remove one of those counters, and then when it has none, you get to cast the card. It taps to add 1 mana of any color. But since Osgir didn't care that you can't cast it and only cares about the mana value of the card, it'll be able to make 2 of them by using 0 mana and tapping and exiling it from your graveyard. So that was pretty cool, but you can now pick up a Mox Tantalite for only $6. That's a mythic for Modern Horizon 1 that you can get for $6. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. The next card is Life Gift. Life Gift is an enchantment for 2 and a green that says, whenever a land comes into play, you may gain 1 life. This saw a spike in play because of Dina Soul Steeper another Strixhaven legendary creature. So Dina is a 1/3 Dryad Druid for a black and a green. And it says whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. And then you can pay 1, you can sack another creature to give Dina plus X plus O until end of turn, where X is that sacrificed creature's power. Life Gift is any land, so it's not just your lands, it's whenever your opponents play lands. And to play this game, you need lands. Everybody's playing the lands.
Yeah.
So if you can land Dina on 2, Life Gift on 3, or if you got lucky and had a Soul Ring and you play Life Gift on 2 and Dina on 3, either way, I guess you're going to gain some life. But over time, assuming a game goes till maybe turn 9 or 10 or 11 or 12, if everybody consistently drops a land after turn 3, that's like you could start getting towards 15-20 life. You just chopped your opponent's life in half by having Life Gift sitting out with your commander, and you don't even have to do anything after that.
No, that's pretty great. I like the idea of like playing things like Tempt with Discovery and stuff with this too. So be like, oh, do I want to get drained 1 again? I don't know if it's worth the land or not anymore.
This is what you can play Ghost Quarter.
There you go.
Ghost Quarter. You force a land and then they go grab it. I don't know if it's May, honestly. I think most people would want to grab a land. I think very few people would want to go get a land if you were to destroy the land, let them go get a basic. But maybe in this case, if they're down to 1 or 2 life, they might not want to go get it. But Life Gift was a card that was 70 cents. A single printing rare from Betrayers of Kamigawa. It was 70 cents leading up to Strixhaven. And then when Strixhaven came out, it shot up to $20.
Oof.
So
$20.
Sub $1 up to 20.
Holy moly.
And if you waited, you can buy it now for about $9. I'm not sure how often a card like Life Gift would be reprinted anyway. Whenever a land comes into play, you gain a life. I'm just not sure where they would print that. But it does reference Azusa. So it's possible it could just come back again. Azusa's a popular character.
Let's go. Kamigawa coming right back.
Exactly. So Lifecraft is now around $9. So if you just waited, you could have saved yourself $11. But I guess if you got it right away, you could have saved yourself $19. But
Yeah.
I don't suggest buying immediately either.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
So another Strixhaven commander, actually not the face commander of one of the commander decks, but instead one of the alternate commanders of a commander deck caused this spike. So Overmaster is a sorcery for 1 red that says the next instant or sorcery spell you play this turn can't be countered by spells or abilities, and you get to draw a card. You might have figured out that this is going to be someone with Magecraft involved, and you'd be right. This is Veyrin, Voice of Duality. So Veyrin is a 3-mana Efreet wizard. So 1, a blue, and a red. You get a 2/2 that has Magecraft. Whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, Veyrin, Voice of Duality gets +1/+1 until end of turn. If you're casting or copying an instant or sorcery spell causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So this is just a great way to get your uncounterable stuff going. Obviously, you get more triggers, and you get to draw a card from this. There was another card, Andy, that you actually... I wanted to ask you if you actually play this in your Rionia Fire Dancer deck.
I don't run it in Rionia, but it works really well. So Rionia is a 3/4 for 3 red. It says at the beginning of combat on your turn, you create X tokens that are copies of another creature you control, where X is 1 plus the number of instants and sorceries you've cast this turn. So they gain haste, exile them. So I do play a lot of 1 mana instant and sorceries in that deck so that, you can get 5 or 6 spells and then make 5 or 6 copies each combat of, it's an extra combat deck, so it certainly stacks. But I don't run Overmaster. I don't own a copy of Overmaster. It's a rare from Torment, and I did not get in when it was sitting around $1.50 before said spike.
Oh, yeah. And it's a shame that you didn't. Well, maybe it's a shame that getting it for $1.50 would be fantastic. I do feel bad for the people who paid $38 for their copies of Overmaster, though.
Oh no.
Yeah, so that was the spike that it hit. Right now, you can pick up that card for about $13, so it's still a little over $10, but it's less than 1/3 of what it actually was at its peak.
Yeah, it it looks like it was also featured on some prominent commander shows as well. There's certainly when there's a lot of hype as well, and not even just the Twitter sphere. A lot of the time, when you see it in a video, people will also go out and buy them out. But being a very old set and a rare, I think, has something to do with it. At least Chain of Smog was not a rare,
right? Uncommon.
But this
from
one,
Onslaught,
this one is a rare. So, $38 is very, very expensive. That's a lot of
That's
money.
like more than most of the enemy fetch lands out there right now.
Yeah, those have been reprinted enough that they're affordable. Now, if you just waited for fetch lands for like 16 years, now you can afford. I don't know actually when the year that Zendikar originally came out, and now I'm not. I feel like it was something like when I was in high school, but now it's been like 15 or 16 years, and they finally feel affordable. But that's not the next card on the list. The next card on the list is Phyrexian Devourer. So this is actually from Alliances, and it is a reserve list card. So that is kind of a grain of salt thing to keep in mind here, that reserve list cards are already kind of going up in price slowly and steadily. Some maybe more than others, but Phyrexian Devourer is a pretty heavy combo piece, and it's comboed previously with commanders before the spike related to, again, Strixhaven commander cards. But Phyrexian Devourer is a 1/1 for 6 mana, which seems really not great. And it says when its power is 7 or greater, you sacrifice it, which also seems really not great. But it says remove the top card of your library from the game, put X +1/+1 counters on Phyrexian Devourer, where X is the removed card's mana value. If Phyrexian Devourer's power is 7 or greater, you sacrifice it. So most of the commanders that abuse Phyrexian Devourer are making it so that you remove the top card of your library from the game, and then in response to removing that and the counters being put on it, you continuously respond to the activation. So even though its power is greater than 7, you're responding to the sacrifice trigger going on the stack, so you can continue to abuse it by exiling cards from your library. Gerard Golgari Lichlord's a deck that I play that abuses this. So Gerard allows me to pay 3 and sacrifice another creature to have my opponents lose life equal to that creature's power. So what I do is I exile cards until Phyrexian Devourer's power is like 40 or more, and then I pay 3 and sacrifice it, and my opponents each lose 40 life. Well, we had some cards come out with the Strixhaven commander decks, Felissa, Fang of Silverquill, and Layla, the Blade Reforged, that also both can abuse Phyrexian Devourer. So Felissa, Fang of Silverquill is a 3/2 vampire wizard with that costs 2 white/black. It has flying, if you did not know, and they are definitely not flying in the artwork. They have Mentor. And then they also say whenever a non-token creature you control dies, if it had counters on it, create X tapped 2/1 white and black inkling creature tokens with flying, where X is the number of counters it had on it. So what you do is at the end of, your opponent's turn that's going just before you, you exile a bunch of cards to make Phyrexian Devourer's power maybe 40 as well. It probably would be solid at 40. It gets sacrificed, and you are going to make a ton of 2/1 flying black and white inkling creature tokens. So you'll probably just win the game. And then Lila, the Blade Reforged, is a 2/2 Spirit Warrior for 2 and a red. So this is a mono red deck, but Phyrexian Devourer fits in mono red because it's colorless.
Right.
It has haste, and it says whenever Layla, the Blade Reforged, attacks, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. And says whenever you exile 1 or more cards from your library and or your graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on Layla. So you can exile cards, you can buff Layla, and swing at your opponents for some commander damage. I haven't seen actually Phyrexian Devourer in any of the Felissa decks that I've played against, and I did get to play against a few from last year.
Oh, nice.
But when those cards came out, Phyrexian Devourer was around $5, so it wasn't super like cheap, but it shot up to $37.
Wow.
Which is funny that it shot up to 37 because it was already a combo piece in some previous commanders. I think they just lost their luster, right? For Gerard Gerard Golgari Lichlord is not like the most abundantly seen green-black commander. There's plenty of other cool options. So this shot up to 37. It's now back down to between 10 and 15, depending on where you're shopping for it. But it is reserve list, so it's not going to be reprinted again. Right. So it's likely only ever going to go up in price. But if you waited, at least you saved yourself about $20.
Yeah, it's... I actually I do have one of these, actually. And
oh, do you?
Yeah, it was, we actually built this deck together. This was my Lazav the Multifarious deck, which uses the card Necrotic Ooze, which has all the activated abilities of the creatures in your graveyard, to abuse the fact that you don't have the static part of the first part of Phyrexian Devour, where you have to sacrifice it, but you still have the activated ability to just put a bunch of +1/+1 counters on Lazav, Necrotic Ooze, whatever you have. So that was really cool. But
I don't think we saw even a spike when Lazav came out. So I think it just feels like there's a lot more commander players now, and especially when it's the face commander of one of the precons, that certainly has probably something to do with it.
Absolutely. So let's talk about Glamour Dye, because this one was also pretty crazy for the spike. So Glamour Dye is a 2-mana instant. Let's see if you would play this in a deck. Change the text of target spell or permanent by replacing all instances of one color word with another. And it also has Retrace, so you can discard a land card from your hand to cast it again from your graveyard. So this particular card saw a big spike with the printing of Orvar, the All-Form. From Kaldheim, 4-mana shapeshifter 3/3 for 3 and a blue. It is a changeling. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, if it targets one or more other permanents you control, create a token that's a copy of one of those permanents. When a spell or ability an opponent controls causes you to discard this card, create a token that's a copy of target permanent. That part's not really going to be relevant because hopefully Orvar is not really in your hand. I guess unless someone bounces it to your hand, Orvar is in your command zone. But using Glamour Dye, you can start making copies of your own islands. Maybe you stole a Smothering Tithe from someone and you're going to make 20 Smothering Tithes for yourself. I'm not particularly talking about any instances or anything. No, I
definitely never did that. I definitely never did that.
But Glamour Dye went up almost to $6 with Orvar, and Glamour Dye wasn't really played in anything before then. So $6 for that one card with Retrace. Now you can pick it up for $1.50 though.
You can, and if you were playing, there was one competitive deck. I'm not sure how viable it is in CEDH. I am not fully up on the meta right now. I certainly see the new hotness because people tweet it out on Twitter, and so I love watching that. But there was a deck that used to use this with Momir Vig Simic Visionary, so people would call it Hackball. So you would change the color of a permanent. You would change the text of a color on a card. So you would use Glamour Dye to change Momir Vig's second ability to say green. So Momir Vig, it says whenever you play a green creature, you can search your library for a green creature, reveal it, shuffle your library and put it on top. And it says whenever you play a blue creature spell, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature, put it into your hand. So you would play cards like Glamour Dye, and you would change the word blue in Momir Vig's second ability to say green. So whenever you play a green creature spell, you get to search for a green creature, put it on top, and then also draw it. So you basically just play a green creature, put a green creature into your hand. Essentially, you just tutor for it.
Gotcha.
But I'm not sure how popular that deck is anymore. I don't think I've ever seen anyone else have one. When I was looking at trying to initially jump into CEDH, I thought Momir Vig might be a good option. It was very much like Orvar. It was just too much big brain play. And I said, no. I needed less thinking for such a, it required a lot of thought. So Glamour Dye, I'm surprised it went up so much. But yeah, $6, you can get it for $1.50 now.
Mm-hmm. It was actually 50 cents before that. 50 cents.
50 cents. That's a lot. 50 cents to $6.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. The next card is Ulrich of the Krellen Horde. So this is a mythic rare from Eldritch Moon. This was the legendary human werewolf that people were hoping would have been Tovalar, but wasn't. Ulrich is a 4/4 Human werewolf for 3, a red and a green. It says whenever this creature enters the battlefield or transforms into Ulrich or the Krellen Horde, target creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn. And then it has the werewolf text. If no spells were cast, you transform it. It transforms into Ulrich Uncontested Alpha, a 6/6 that says whenever this creature transforms into Ulrich, you can have it fight a non-werewolf creature you don't control, so that's pretty cool. And then it just says if 2 or more spells were cast last turn, you transform it back. So this card was sitting around $1 or $2 for a really long time. It was like, this was, I guess this was, it felt like the go-to kind of commander if someone was building a werewolf deck, but I think most people rule zeroed Arlen Cord previously,
right?
The Planeswalker.
Mm-hmm. But
when Tovolar from Midnight Hunt, Innistrad Midnight Hunt was previewed, this card spiked to $11. And I'm not sure how far it's going to come back down because it is from Eldritch Moon, so it is a small set. And I'm not sure how open to Eldritch Moon was, like the popularity of it, but it's around $7 now. But Tovolar is a 3/3 human werewolf for 1, a red and a green. It says whenever a wolf or werewolf deals damage to a player, you can draw a card. And then it flips if you have 3 or more werewolves, or just based on the actual daybound, nightbound text. And it says whenever a wolf or werewolf deals damage to a player, you may draw a card on the other side on Tovolar, the Midnight Scourge. And then it also gives you some trample effects here. You can pay X, a red and a green, to give target wolf or werewolf plus X+O and trample till end of turn. I do think that just in general, werewolves went up, and I think we might still be a little close to the Innistrad Midnight Hunt release.
Yep. That
maybe if we were to look at this in a year, Ulrich might be further down. So maybe because it's still standard legal. But yeah, $1 or $2 shooting up to 11 is also pretty high, and it's around 7 now, so it didn't come down too much.
Right. Well, yeah, like you said, all the werewolves, and it's probably one of the best werewolves in the 99 for a werewolf commander. I mean, huge buffs and fight ability. So yeah, no, fantastic. So Dakin Blackblade is a character that we saw come back. Well, not really come back. We saw him again in a supplementary set in Modern Horizons 2. But right around that same time, the popularity of Dakin Blackblade kind of was going up. And we saw a price increase of the original Dakin Blackblade, I guess the 2 original Dakin Blackblade card printings in Chronicles and Legends. So Dakin Blackblade is a 6, sorry, I had to count the pips, a 6 CMC human warrior star in the Esper colors. So 2, a white, a blue, and a black. You get a human warrior that says Dakin Blackblade's power and toughness are each equal to the number of lands you control.
That is so Esper. So
right?
Esper, too.
It's literally the most Esper thing in the world. If you're wondering why it sounds really familiar, Blackblade Reforged is an equipment that does something exactly the same, gives +1/+1 for each land you control to the equipped creature. But the new Dakin, the newest printed Dakin was actually a Planeswalker from Modern Horizons 2, also in the Esper color. So for a white, a blue, and a black, you get a Planeswalker Dakin that starts with 0 loyalty. Oh no! Oh wait, Dakin Shadowslayer enters the battlefield with a number of loyalty counters on him equal to the number of lands you control. So there's the flavor. A +1 to Surveil 2, a -3 to exile target creature, and a -6. You may put an artifact card from your hand or graveyard onto the battlefield. I believe this also was supposed to be for like Blackblade Reforged or Blackblade itself. But there's really not a correlation between the OG Dakin and the new Dakin, other than they're the same colors.
The popularity maybe in just the character itself.
Yeah, it had to be. But
I don't know. But the card was $1 from Chronicles for years.
Yes. I think Chronicles still has what? Concordant Crossroads, Ashnod's Altar, and 1 or 2 other cards that are actually worth more than $5. So it's very rare to see a card from Chronicles actually spike like that. I did actually have the pleasure of playing against a Dakin deck before, though. At Command Fest Chicago, which was really cool. It was a voting themed one. But that person probably only spent about $1 on their deck, and where people were spending $20 on Dakin when Modern Horizons 2 was being released, which is
20
crazy.
times the price.
For a 6-mana Star Esper Voltron only is all I can think of that you could do with that commander. I'm sure there's other things you can do. But if you just would have waited, you can get one for $2. It is white border, though. You might care about that.
I mean, I guess you could buy one from Legends for $188 or whatever it is now, if you want it in black border. Yeah, there was no like specific card, so it has to just be related to the character. That's all I can really think of here. The next card though that I do like a lot from Ravnica, so it's just it's really cool, is Savra, Queen of the Golgari. So Savra is a 2/2 elf shaman for 2 black and a green, and it says whenever you sacrifice a black creature, you can pay 2 life. If you do, each other player sacrifices a creature, and whenever you sacrifice a green creature, you can gain 2 life. So for the longest time, Savra was only printed in Ravnica City of Guilds. It was reprinted in the Guilds of Ravnica Golgari Guild Kit. And right now, these are sitting at around $3. Before all of the Strixhaven cards came out, which is when we saw this spike, Savra was $1.50. So really, half the price of what it is today. But during that spike, Savra went up to between $25 or $30, depending on the version you bought, either the Ravnica City of Guilds printing or the Guilds of Ravnica Guild Kit. And honestly, it probably just has to do with these pests again, these black and green pests that when they die, you can gain a life, and maybe it just generic sacrifice fodder is really all that I can, I guess, put together. It's like maybe Witherbloom, new hotness. They wanted to see the new green black, so Savra became cool again.
Yeah, I think because Savra cares about both black creatures dying and green creatures dying, or I guess you sacrificing them, and a pest being both black and green. You get both of her abilities to gain 2 life and force people to sacrifice a creature. And you gain a life in the process because of the pest, and the 2 abilities that Savra has offset each other for lose 2 life, gain 2 life. So you get to gain 1 life and make everyone sacrifice a creature. An edict theme in Golgari seems very normal.
On par.
Yeah.
Par for the course.
And then, I mean, they had cards like Beladros Witherbloom that literally says at the beginning of each upkeep, create a 1/1 black and green pest creature token. So every upkeep you get one. And, there's a bunch more cards in the Witherbloom set that were making these pests. So it was more than just one card that could be making these green and black worm tokens that we had before. Now we have these pests, which are way more plentiful for this Savra deck.
It's really cool. It's really cool for the Savra deck. And when I was looking at a long time ago, I used to talk about building 1 commander for each guild on Ravnica. And I ended up going with Gerard, but Savra was obviously the other option that I was thinking about going with. And I never built it, and I always thought about it. Maybe I should now change it up.
Gotta
Check
do
it
it
out.
It's something. Something I thought while we were doing this. The Ravnica Golgari guild seems to have kind of a rotating door when it comes to the leader of that guild.
They just kill everyone. They're like, no, I'm in charge.
Versus like Rakdos, Lazav. Actually, it wasn't Lazav to begin with. It was Mirko Vosk, Mind Drinker.
And it was, I think, Saz's deck before that.
Okay, so we've only had Lazav twice. Maybe 3 times.
Yeah, I think we've had Niv Mizzet every time.
Oh, well, that's true. But he's no longer the Izzet guild leader, so...
Spoiler alerts from 2 years ago.
I almost apologized. So, Samurai of the Pale Curtain. And you might think, Samurai, are they going to talk about Kamigawa already? No. Samurai of the Pale Curtain is a Fox Samurai 2/2 for white that has Bushido 1, which is not going to be relevant for why this spiked, but the second part of text on this creature, if a permanent will be put into a graveyard, remove it from the game instead. Now, this card saw a spike for actually during Call Time Commander release because of Renar the Ever Watchful. So Renar is the blue-white spirits pre-con face commander. So for 2, a white and a blue, you get a 2/3 spirit warrior with flying and vigilance. This is the first card you foretell each turn, costs 0 to foretell. And whenever you exile 1 or more cards from your hand and or permanents from the battlefield, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. So obviously, you can see Samurai of the Pale Curtain. Whenever you sacrifice something, it's going to get exiled instead before it goes to the graveyard, triggering Renar's ability. So there's the combo that's built in there. But we saw this particular card. It was less than $1, and it went up all the way to $6 during this. I mean, it's just a 2 mana. I guess it's kind of like a Rest in Peace on a creature, but it only had 1 printing at uncommon in Champions of Kamigawa. So I guess it was still uncommon, though.
It is still uncommon, but a single printing from the original Kamigawa just block is, it's still pretty low inventory. I've seen this played in Heliod Suncrowned decks before as an additional kind of Rest in Peace. But it's not a very commonly played creature, and the Bushido one I don't think matters, at least for Commander.
Not yet. Not until we get a lot more Samurai. But speaking of Rest in Peace, we don't see a similar spike in price in this card, and it's because it's a very, very different card. It's been printed at least 5 times. And although at Rare, it's had Secret Lair printings, it's very readily available, and its price is most tied to Modern than it is to Commander.
Yeah, I own one of this, and I'm not running it right now in anything. So maybe we'll get something new in Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, and I'll bring it back out.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you will. You'll have to. So Acorn Catapult. I bet you don't know the creature type that this one is going to be important for.
I don't know what creatures like acorns.
I mean, I'm not a biologist, but I'm going to guess more than just squirrels. But we're just going to say squirrels for now.
We'll say squirrels. Yeah, to be fair, that's a good answer. Yeah. Maybe more than squirrels, but definitely squirrels.
Definitely squirrels. So Acorn Catapult is a 4-mana colorless artifact that has activated ability of pay 1 and tap it. And Acorn Catapult deals 1 damage to target creature or player. That creature's controller or that player puts a 1/1 green squirrel creature token onto the battlefield. This card has 2 printings in Commander 2011, and it was on the list. I'm not sure which set actually it was on the list for.
Oh yeah, the list changes a lot. So
right.
At some point it was on the list.
It was on the list. So this card spiked to $14 to $19, depending on where you can find it from, with the printing in Modern Horizons 2 of Chatterfang Squirrel General. So a lot of people thought that Toski being a squirrel, maybe that was going to help out. And I think we saw spikes in cards like not Hermit Druid, but some of those like reserve list squirrel creating cards and stuff. But we didn't see spikes in all of the squirrel cards until Chatterfang's Squirrel General.
And before that, for years, since, when we looked back at the actual timeline on this, it was sitting at like I don't know, sub $1 for a long time.
Yeah, it was, if you looked at the card, you might think, why would I want to deal 1 damage to my opponent and give them a 1/1 token? Or maybe you're going to damage yourself and get yourself a 1/1 token. But the squirrel wasn't really relevant until we had Chatterfang.
Now it is. 48 cents for a squirrel is worth it in Chatterfang.
That's right.
But if you got it for 48 cents.
That's right. So Chatterfang Squirrel General is a 3-mana Squirrel Warrior, 3/3 with Forest Walk that says if 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus that many 1/1 green squirrel creature tokens are created instead. So with Acorn Catapult, you're actually going to get 2 squirrels instead of 1. But Chatterfang also has a activated ability that says pay a black, sacrifice X squirrels, and target creature gets plus X minus X until end of turn. So obviously doubling your squirrels from Acorn Catapult and being able to sacrifice all of them to kill things or pump Toski a lot. whatever you're going to do. We finally had a squirrel commander, but
it's a good one. It's a really good one.
It is.
Too.
If you're thinking about building Chatterfang, you might still want to wait a little bit to pick up your Acorn Catapult. It is down to about $10, but I think it's going to trend a lot more down unless squirrels get some more support in the very near future.
Who knows? Who knows? And the last card on our list today is Ashes of the Fallen, which is a card that I've never played with, but I do like what the card does. Ashes of the Fallen is an artifact for 2 colorless that says, as Ashes of the Fallen comes into play, choose a creature type. Each creature card in your graveyard has the chosen creature type in addition to its other types. So this is a single printing. It is a rare from Saviors of Kamigawa. And for years, this was sitting around 30 to 40 to 50 cents. So under $1 for a very, very long time. Spiking when Modern Horizons 2 came out, all the way up to potentially $9 in some instances, because of Grist the Hunger Tide. So Grist is the new legendary Planeswalker commander, because it can be your commander, that has 3 loyalty, costs 1 black and a green, and it says, as long as Grist the Hunger Tide is not on the battlefield, it is a 1/1 insect creature in addition to its other types. You can make insects and mill. You can sack creatures to destroy a creature or a planeswalker, and then each opponent loses life equal to the number of creatures in your graveyard. And right now, if you bought it, so you waited for a while, it's back down to around $2. And it still might, it's possible that it would go down even further. But being 50 cents to $9, it's another big old jump.
Yeah, there's a lot of cards printed out there that kind of override creature types like Arcane Adaptation, Conspiracy, and Maskwood Nexus, but they care about a lot more than just the graveyard, and that's what makes Ashes of the Fallen very unique. Now, Arcane Adaptation, Conspiracy, and Maskwood Nexus all do the same thing with your graveyard as well. You won't be able to play Arcane Adaptation because it's blue in your Grist decks. And Ashes of the Fallen actually has the advantage of being the cheapest mana value-wise out of all of them, making it really, really good. But Patriarch's Bidding was also a sorcery that was printed in Modern Horizons 2 that Ashes of the Fallen goes particularly well with, and Patriarch's Bidding was almost $40 before it got reprinted in Modern Horizons 2. So Patriarch's Bidding becoming more affordable helped people find the combo with Ashes of the Fallen. So Patriarch's Bidding is a 5-mana sorcery, 3 black that says each player chooses a creature type. Each player returns all creature cards of a type chosen this way from their graveyard to the battlefield. So you could use this in any deck where you have variable creature types and stuff. Use Patriarch's Bidding after you claim Ashes of the Fallen on any creature type and just name that creature type to get all of your creatures back onto the battlefield.
Yeah, that's really cool. I own a Patriarch's Bidding now because of Modern Horizons 2, so
Exactly.
maybe I should pick up an Ashes of the Fallen at some point. This is not one that was on my radar at the time, but now that I see it, I'm glad I didn't just buy it for the hype. But I was thrilled that Grist was printed and can actually be your commander. I'm a big advocate for checking out planeswalkers as commanders. I know it's quite the controversial statement. I think it's a cool card, though. So taking a look at all of these, though, we kind of wanted to put into perspective how much we would have paid if we bought into these cards into the hype versus what we would have bought if we kind of waited until now, or perhaps got that, or just maybe had a copy. So if you purchased these at the hype, Coyle, how much money would we have paid?
Let me do the math. Bring out the calculator. Beep, beep, boop, boop, bop. $285 if you bought all of these cards at their peak hype.
Oh my gosh, that's so expensive. And if you bought them, though, currently, it looks like you were going to spend about $74.50. About.
What?
About.
That is, hold on. Let me get that calculator back up. Beep, beep, boop, boop, bop. You save over $200, $210.50 if you don't buy into the hype.
I do have a question, though. Did you pay more so that your calculator would bop? Because mine only beeps and boops.
Actually, you have to pay less. It becomes an annoyance. You don't want it, I promise.
Oh, it's really annoying. You don't want the third sound effect, only the first two.
That's correct.
Yeah, so the point of this is don't fear don't worry about buying cards right away. We are advocates of testing out. It's really cool when you write on on a swamp in Sharpie not an island. I don't ruin an island. Maybe you can ruin a swamp.
Yeah.
And just write like, Acorn Catapult. This is my Acorn Catapult.
There you go.
And if you like it, great. And then pick up a copy.
Right.
But maybe don't just pick it up for $19 right away.
Because perhaps if you wait, you could save about 75% off.
Oh, yeah, it's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. It's a lot. And we want to hear about your picks. If you have any cards that you have avoided FOMO on, we'd love to hear how much money you saved, because here I always like telling people how much money I saved, like with coupons. So tweet at us or email us and let us know if you saved any money previously on cards, because we would love to chat about them the next time we do this episode. And that's it for this week. You can find us online, specifically on Twitter if you want to talk to us pretty quickly. And I'm on Twitter at Andy Flory.
And I'm on Twitter at Wormcoil Engine. And of course, we want to give a special thanks to Ryan Nichols, our producer and editor. Thank you so much for everything you do. And Chris Wolf, who handles all of our graphic design. Thank you so much for everything that you do. You can check out our streaming. We're back on Tuesday nights. Come watch us. If you're listening to this, go watch the VOD from the first stream of the year. And we will chat with you all next week.
Bye, everyone.